next up we have Lisa Mclean, who's the Executive Manager of Corporate Affairs and Marketing for a company called Flow Solutions and Systems. Sorry, Flow Systems. They're all about sustainable water and energy. And in fact, what she's trying to do is disrupt water infrastructure. And they're doing this looking at decentralized solutions for precinct-scale water management, like the new development at Central Park and also a Green Square. Not only are they looking at water, but also energy usage as well. As Kai was saying, the two are quite intimately linked. So she's going to come up and talk to that in a moment. One thing that you probably should know is that she has the distinction of having worked for Bill Clinton. I'm assured not as an intern. In fact, she was in charge of the climate initiative, Bill Clinton's climate initiative. She worked for that out of London. Please welcome her up, Lisa Mclean.
Thank you. So one fact about water that continues to blow my mind is that we have the same water today on planet Earth that we had billions of years ago. So it's the same water that dinosaurs drank. It's the same water that cavemen and women drank and urinated back into the ground, the same water that evaporated, formed condensation, rained back on the Earth, and ultimately filled our waterways of today. It's also the same water that makes up 62% of the human body. So that water in our cells, like all water, has been recycled for millennia. And when you start to think about water in this way, recycling is actually quite natural. Innovation and technology has also helped us to recycle in the same way that nature does. And I'm talking about recycling wastewater, stormwater, sewage. And technologies like microfibers are actually 80 times smaller than pathogens and viruses. So they shut out contaminants and make water safe for all purposes, including drinking. And while we're not drinking water in recycled water in Australia yet, people are drinking it, and they're drinking it in the UK, in the US, they're drinking it in Singapore, and they're also drinking it in space. Up there, they're actually recycling 93% of all water, including urine and sweat, actually, would you believe?
Water used to be delivered in water-filled bags like this one. We brought them up on space shuttles and, of course, all of the visiting resupply vehicles. But since 2010, we've got a system on board that can purify the water real time. You don't have to take it out and store it in bags. We have filters and a keg-sized distiller that spins to create artificial gravity and move the wastewater along. And with it, we can recycle about 6,000 liters of extra water for the station each year. We even recycle our urine. Ew. But before you cringe at the thought of drinking your leftover wash water and your leftover urine, keep in mind that the water that we end up with is purer than most of the water that you drink on a daily basis at home. That makes the International Space Station its own self-contained environment. That's a critical step towards living for long periods off of planet Earth.
So back here on Earth, if we are to create truly sustainable communities, then we really need to be using every single drop of water. So we certainly shouldn't be throwing any of it away. And all the water that falls into, runs through, is used in a community needs to be harvested, purified, and reused back in that community fit for purpose. And our collective goal should really be 100% recycling of water. So how do we recycle water if we don't have the infrastructure to do so? We are working with leading developers and leading governments to start a new trend away from centralised water infrastructure. Large centralised drinking water and wastewater infrastructure is costly, and it also promotes the flush and forget mentality. Why pump in water over tens of kilometres to use it once and then pump it all the way out to the sea to dispose of it? There is actually a better way, and that's about keeping the water in the community and creating multiple water sources for multiple water uses. And that's actually what we're doing at Central Park. Here, this award-winning, globally award-winning sustainable precinct just near Central Station opposite UTS, and I think they actually won another award today for sustainability. When it's fully operational, the Sustainable Water Centre here is going to be the biggest in the world of its kind, recycled water centre of its kind in the world, in the basement of a residential building. We'll be providing 1 million litres of recycled water for the community there, so that's 5,300 residents and about 1,700 workers. And over there, we'll be creating 2 types of refined water for use there. So for toilet flushing, washing machine use, and for irrigation of those beautiful green walls, we'll have 1 type of refined water, and then a refined water with less salt for air cooling. And we get those 2 qualities from a number of different sources. We get it from irrigation runoff, from stormwater runoff and irrigation overflow, from wastewater and sewage within the community, and wastewater and sewage from outside of that community. And so the toilets and irrigation systems and washing machines are all hardwired to our sustainable water network. All the water comes back down into the facility underground. It gets purified to the highest Australian standards and then back into the homes for reuse and into the community for reuse. And it's actually a massive saving. It's about 50% of the water needs of that community on a daily basis. And all the water saved by recycling is drinking water preserved for future use. Green Square is another project that's setting new benchmarks for sustainability over on the way to the airport near at the back of Waterloo. And here we're actually harvesting 150 Olympic swimming pool sizes of stormwater. And we're harvesting that for the same uses at Central Park, hardwiring them into the community, into the new buildings that will go in there for toilet flushing and washing machine use, etc. We're also stopping 3 tonnes of sediment from being washed out to sea through this purification process and reharnessing this waste. And importantly at Green Square, we're proving that harvesting and reusing stormwater is actually economically viable. Another project is Huntley, and it's taking, in the Hunter Valley, it's taking water sustainability really to that next level. This is going to be an 8-star plus community, the first city in the Hunter Valley for 100 years. It'll have universities, it'll have hospitals, schools, businesses and homes, and it'll be supercharged with sustainable technologies, decentralised energy and water systems, waste systems, and also electric vehicles. But importantly here, it's going to have free water usage. And we've been able to make this possible because we've rethought the way that we actually use and supply our infrastructure there. We're avoiding costly centralised infrastructure, and we're investing in decentralised systems that can extract value from the multiple different water sources within that community. So these projects are really world leading, but they're just the tip of the iceberg of what we could be doing. If we can actually make our water infrastructure more flexible and more technologically agnostic, we can enable a whole raft of new innovations. For example, in the future, homes will get all of their water needs from a unit, a little bit like the one in space, attached to the side of their home. It'll provide them with 100% of their drinking needs, water needs, including drinking water. So there will be no need for any infrastructure in the streets. It'll be completely self-contained. And that's the future that we're working towards. And it's actually easier than you think. Okay, thank you everyone.